Hi there and welcome to this Color It In coloring tutorial. Today I'm going to show you how to color this cute little cat, and all the supplies that I used are going to be linked down below. So let's go ahead and get started. Now if you want to draw a window behind your cat the way that I did mine, what you'll need to do is get a ruler and line it up here and draw a line right there up to the cat's head. And then we're going to scooch the ruler over and line it up with those guidelines up at the top and the bottom again, and draw another line up to the head. Then we're going to turn the ruler this way and line it up against here and here, and you're going to draw a straight line but skip the cat's head. So stop there and then pick up your pencil and then finish it up over here. And same thing down here. Line it up and draw your line. There we go. Now we've got the window behind the cat. And before we begin coloring, we're going to use a black fine tip Sharpie marker, and we're going to just color in the pupils of the eyes and the nose and the mouth. And if you can swing it, you can, well, as you're coloring, you can leave a little white spot like that, but that can be kind of hard for when you're using a Sharpie marker. So I'm going to show you how to add the white sparkle later with some paint. So in the meanwhile, let's just go ahead and color this in, and let's move on to the nose now. We're going to outline everything first neatly, and then fill it in. And now just trace around the mouth. And there we go. Okay, so the first thing we're going to color is the cat's head. And we're going to use these Noyo Gel Crayons. The color I'm going to use is this second orange in the box. And this is the brightest orange, but you might want to double check before you use it. You can see that's brighter than all of the other oranges in the box. So we're going to color section by section because that's a pretty big oval. So right here at the bottom of the ear, I'm going to make a little guideline. And then between here and here, I'm going to find the middle. And I'm just going to section it off there. And then I'm going to trace around the eye. So I'm going to make sure to smooth off any crumbs that might be on the color, and I like to just kind of save my color instead of wiping it on my apron. And I'm just going to find an edge here on the crayon and just carefully work my way around the eye and around the head. Now I'm going to color in that section. Notice that I'm keeping my strokes really close together. And I'm kind of following along the curve, like the shape of the head. But you can pretty much go in any direction that you need to, as long as you are covering up all the paper and not letting any of the paper show through. Okay, so now that you've got the hang of it, I'm going to go ahead and speed up the video here. I'm going to section it off down here and do all of my outlining. And when you color, it's okay to go right through the mouth because I'm going to show you how to clean it up a little bit later. But in the meanwhile, let's just go ahead and finish up all of our sectioning off, outlining, and coloring. While you color, you want to make sure that the bottom of your hand does not touch your paper because you don't want it to get all smeary. Okay, now that we're done coloring, let's smooth off the crayon, and before putting the cap on, let's twist it down. The next step is we are going to blend. So let's trace around with our finger around the whole oval first. And now let's just work our way in. You don't really have to press too hard because sometimes when you press too hard with these gel crayons, they might leave a little bit of a bald spot. So just gentle blending to smooth out any crumbs or any paper that might still be showing through. Okay, now I'm going to show you how to clean up the mouth. If you have any nail, you can either scrape it out with your nail, or you can take a paper clip, open it up, and use the very tip of it. And you see now how I'm going to scrape out some of that orange off of the black of the mouth. And there we go. Okay, so the next shape that we're going to color is the body. And we're going to follow that same pattern of we're going to outline everything first and then color it in. It's important to take the time to do your outlining because if you don't do it, sometimes you might color a little bit too much outside of the line. The outline acts as a barrier to prevent you from getting messy, from going outside the line. And once again, I sped that up just to save some video time. But that's the pattern. You outline, color, and blend. Now we're going to move on to the ears. For sure, you definitely need to make sure to smooth off any crumbs. And you want to find some sort of tip or some sort of edge on your color. And that's a really skinny space to fit in at the very tip there. So that's where you would only go in with kind of light pressure in those narrow spaces. So right here, I'm just going to apply very light pressure at the tip and do all of my outlining and then coloring. I did sort of go outside the line a little bit, but you can either scrape it out with a nail or your paperclip tip. But we're also going to be coloring the background too, so we can cover it up with the color behind it. All right, now I'm doing all of my careful blending. And we're gonna clean off our hands. Let's get rid of all that orange with a hand wipe. Now, normally I would have you do some outlining, but today I think I'm going to show you how to do a little bit of shading. I'm going to choose the darkest orange in the box, and we're going to color right underneath the head. So follow the same curve, but make this a pretty thick outline. You see how I'm adding like 2 or 3 rows in there. Now we're going to blend it. First, we're going to smooth it out across like that. And now we're just going to gently pull the edge of that dark orange into the lighter orange, and you'll see it starts to fade away into the lighter orange. And that's what will help it to look like a realistic shadow. And then we can do the same thing up at the ears, at the bottom of the ears, because that will help to separate all of that light orange. It will help to define those ears. And then of course, once you have it colored in, then you're going to gently blend it into the light orange. There we go. Okay, so let's make sure to go ahead and clean off our hands before moving on to the next color, which is going to be pink for the ears. So I'm using that first pink in the box, and I'm going to make sure to smooth it off before I go ahead and apply it. And we're going to follow those same steps of outline the shape first carefully, and then go ahead and color it in. Same thing on the other side. Careful outlining. Lighten up your pressure towards those narrow little corners. That'll help you out a lot to stay nice and neat. And now we're going to carefully blend. Now I'm going to show you a cute little trick. I'm going to take that paper clip and I'm going to add a little bit of fur texture inside of the ears by scraping out little lines from the pink there. See how that looks like there's some fur inside of his ears now? Next, we're going to work on the eyes. So I'm choosing to do green eyes, and I'm going to use these watercolor pencils here. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the yellow green to start with, and I'm going to add a little bit of light around the black pupil. So probably just about that much there. So just follow the circular shape of the pupil. Then I'm going to switch to the darker green in the box, which is labeled just plain green on the barrel of it. And I'm going to go up to here. And again, just following the shape of the circle. I'm going to speed it up just a little bit, but you take your time. And do the same thing on the other side. Fill it all in. And because they're watercolor crayons, I'm going to use my Filbert number 6 brush because it's got a really great narrow little tip there. And you just dip it in the water and swipe most of the water off. You just kind of want to wet the brush and start in the light green and then just follow that circular motion. And you see how that sort of made the colors stand out a lot more. So just following the same curve of those circles. And the water also helps to smooth out any of those pencil marks. Ta-da! Isn't that so cool? All right, so I'm going to clean off the brush, put that aside. And now I'm going to move on to the window panes in the background with my lightest blue in the box. So that one. And I'm going to color each section of the window. First, of course, by outlining, and then I'm going to color, and then I'm going to blend, and then I'm going to move on to the next section. So I've been speeding this up, but of course you take your time and pause the video whenever you need to catch up. Okay, now that we're done, let's go ahead and clean off our hands. And I'm going to move on to the trees in the background. And what I'm going to use for that are these dab and dot markers. They're really fun. So I'm going to use the green, the brown for the tree trunks, and the red because I'm going to add some apples up in the trees. So starting with the green, I'm going to shake it up a little bit to get it going, and I'm going to dab it off to the side there to get it to wake up. And what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to plan to do a little tree right there behind the cat's ear. And all you have to do is literally just dab the dot markers. Okay, try not to scrape it because I think when you do the little dabbing circles like that, that helps it to look like there's lots of leaves in the tree. So there's that tree in that corner, and I'm going to repeat the same process on the other side, working around the tip of the cat's ear, dabbing it all in. And you're going to notice that this dries really quickly and it kind of fades a little bit off into the blue, which is perfect because that's going to help it to look like it's really behind the window glass. So now moving on to the brown, I'm going to just use this and add my tree trunks. And I'm going to continue it underneath that part of the window. And here I decided to just sort of make the tree trunks look a little bit wider at the bottom. And then I decided to add little bushes right here at the bottom. You don't have to do that part. Maybe you could just make it look like there's a lot of grass going on in the background. But I chose to do little bushes. Now I'm going to take the red, and this is going to be real simple. All you have to do is just dab it once to get those little circles to make them look like apples up in the trees. And they look kind of dark now, but you see how they absorb well into the rest. Now I'm going to use the lightest brown in the box, and we're going to work on the window in the background. Because this brown is pretty dark, even though it's the lightest brown, all the browns are pretty dark, you really want to take your time with the outlining so that it doesn't interrupt the colors of your cat. Then of course you're going to blend it. And you can see I sped this part up, so it looks like it's going really fast, but you should definitely take your time. Okay, so I'm going to clean up my little mess there on the side. Now I'm going to use some white acrylic paint. I like this Folk Art brand, but you can use any white acrylic paint. This is actually a craft paint, and it's very opaque, meaning it's very thick. It's not very see-through. But anyway, I'm going to make sure my brush is nice and clean. And I'm just going to grab just a little bit of the paint on the edge of the paint dab there, because I don't want my brush to be too gloppy. And I'm just going to use the very side edge of the bristles. So not like this, like this. This is going to help us get a thin line. So I'm going to create a diagonal right there. And here I'm going like at the tip of the cat's ear. And then just a little bit behind the ear. And then here I'm going in the corner. Just make sure they're nicely spaced, not too crowded. And here's another diagonal. So you just pull, and then right there at the corner to corner. Nicely spaced. Reload the brush, and then just quickly pull. There we go. Now the windows look like real glass. Now one final step, after I clean my brush off, of course, is we're going to add a little white sparkle in the cat's eyes. And so we're going to use that with our handy dandy paper clip. All you have to do is dip it into the paint, and then we just dab it once, maybe twice, into the eyes, and then repeat the same pattern on the other side. They're just quick little boops. And now before I call it done, I'm going to clean up a little bit. So I hate to waste paint, so I'm going to put some of my paint back, put the cap back on, and let's go ahead and clean off our brush. And then clean up our little paint mess there on the side. But now we are done. Ta-da! How adorable. Well, I hope you had fun with me, and hopefully I will see you for the next one. Thanks so much. Bye.